We're now into the month of October, and that means we're in month number 2 of LTO and new release season. And in this video, I've got 12 different bottles of bourbon and whiskey dropping this month that you should be on the hunt for. Welcome in, everybody. I am Brandon Spinner, a TV meteorologist, and you have stormed yourself into the Whiskey Weather YouTube channel, where it is always whiskey weather. Now, before we jump into the list for October, I want to ask you what your biggest score in the month of September was. Throw that in the comment section below. If I had to choose, I'd say my biggest score was probably being able to find 2 of these Old Fitzgerald's Bottled and Bond 13-year VVS's at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, which you saw in the video right there on the top right of your screen. And if you haven't watched it yet, you're going to want to wait till the end of the video where I have it linked so you can keep on watching. As for my month VVS from the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, but I want to know what your biggest score was. As I mentioned, throw that in the comment section below, and let's jump right into the list for October. Coming in at number 1, we're going to stay with Heaven Hill Distillery, a bottle I thought was going to be at the Kentucky Bourbon Fest, and in fact, it was number 1 on my list for the top 12 bottles to be on the hunt for in September, but they didn't release it, and that is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C924. But now that we're in October, I think that they should probably call it Batch C1024 or C1024. That's neither here nor there. Now, I say we're putting this on the list for October because, one, it didn't drop in September. Now we have the particulars. This year, the C batch comes in at a proof of 129 proof. That is up there, not into the 130s like last year's C batch. Usually the C batch is the best batch of the year for most people's standards. This year, the bottle is also coming in at a slightly younger age on the C batch, and that's coming in right at 11 years. The MSRP is bumped up a little bit, or at least I've been told, at $74.99. Still very affordable for a 11-year-old bourbon. That is definitely one that you should keep an eye on. And sticking with Heaven Hill Distillery, another barrel proof C batch dropping this month. I actually saw it posted in a Facebook group the other day. The bottle number 2 is going to be Larceny Barrel Proof C924. The particulars on this one, 125.11 proof. There's also a new design on the bottle, more of a gold looking label rather than the old school black that this one looks like. You can see there the change is really to the neck sleeve as well as the label on the front of the bottle comparative to years past. Now, another thing to keep an eye out for with the Larceny is this is a much more affordable bottle than the Elijah Craig, coming in at $64.99. Number 3, it is a bottle that I don't know I would be hunting for. I know it's a big one, though, that a lot of people are always looking out for, and that is High West's A Midwinter's Night's Dram Act 12, dropping this year. The distillery announced October 1st that they will be releasing it at the distillery on October the 6th, and it'll be available online on October the 8th, and they must have made a lot of it, because you're allowed to buy 6 bottles online to have shipped to your house, only if you're in certain states, which I believe they list on their website. As for the particulars on this one, this year's proof, 98.6. The MSRP, though, continues to go up. It's right at where it was last year, $150, and there's no age statement, but the mash bill is a mixture of 95.5 rye from MGP, and also blended with some of High West's own Rendezvous rye of 80% rye, 20% malted barley. As I mentioned, it should be available October 8th online, unless you're near the distillery. That'll be October 6th. Coming in at number 4 was a new release that was announced on Monday, September the 30th, for the month of October. One that was kind of exciting because I've already tried it at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. But number 4 is Castle & Key's Cask Strength Wheated Bourbon, a straight bourbon whiskey coming from Castle & Key, which I do know that a lot of folks don't really love their bourbon, and me, myself included in that. I don't think their bourbon batches the first couple of years were great. I will say my favorite part of Castle & Key is their 100 proof wheated bourbon, so this is just the cask strength version of it. It's coming in right at 105.8 proof, $60 for a price point. That's not too bad for an LTO or a brand new release for a cask strength bourbon, especially when you think that it comes in at 7 years old. The latest trends have been about $10 for every year that it's aged, so 7 years, you would think closer to $70, maybe even more. Not too bad. So the first couple, 3 out of the first 4, very affordable bottles. One thing about the Castle & Key Cask Strength, I've tried it at Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Very delicious. It's probably my favorite pour of them so far. It would be a bottle that if I saw it, I would probably be picking it up. The mash bill on this, 73% white corn, 17% malted barley, and 10% winter wheat. So a little bit of a mix-up on that. It's the lowest percentage is the wheat with a higher percentage of malted barley. But overall, it's very, I hate using the word smooth, but it's smooth, it's got a lot of flavor, and you can feel that cask strength coming through, but it doesn't blow you away. Bottle number 5 is really going to be bottles number 5, 6, and 7, because they're all coming from Penelope. But Penelope's doing something different this month. You've probably heard of it already, but they're calling it the Estates Collection. The Penelope Estate Collection, there will be 3 different releases. The first one, which we'll call bottle number 5, is going to be their Founder's Reserve. Now, this is also a straight wheat whiskey. I believe the mash bill is 95% wheat, 5% malted barley. This is an 11-year-old whiskey that has 5 different lots or 5 different batches. So depending on what batch you come across, the proofs are going to be different, ranging from 107 proof all the way to 118 proof. Here's the one thing about this that I don't love, it's the price point. Penelope, I really enjoy what they're doing, but this bottle comes in at a price point of $200. Personally, if I came across it, not sure I'd be pulling the trigger on it, but it is a bottle that I know a lot of people are on the hunt for, and it will be releasing this month. Now, another one that's more affordable is their Private Selection, their Private Select. This is coming in at 101.2 proof, a much more affordable MSRP of $79.99. This is a 9-year-old whiskey, and it's a 4-grain whiskey, but it's not the kind of 4-grain that you would expect. It is a mixture of 74% corn, 20% rye, 5% malted barley, and 1% wheat. A little bit of a different 4-grain, if you even want to call it that, because of how small the percentage is there, but 1% wheat. Technically, it's a 4-grain whiskey, as I mentioned. A much more affordable, $79.99. That is a very select amount of bottles as well. All of this is a small allotment for their release. And then finally, they're going to also have 2 different single barrels dropping that are bourbons, but they are a blend of the different high rye and mid rye mash bills from MGP. So the first one coming in at the 21% mash bill, that is 75, 21.4, a normal MGP mash bill. That has a proof of 98. The MSRP on both of these bottles are going to be $89.99. And they're both coming in at 10 years old. The other one, the 36% rye mash bill, is going to be slightly higher in proof. That is 105 proof. And for those of you who don't know, that is MGP's highest rye mash bill for bourbon, or at least one of their general high rye mash bills. I do think they have a 51.49, but 60, 36, 4. Again, $90 for 10-year-old bourbon. Much better deal than the Founder's Reserve. So those are 3 coming from Penelope. Jumping to a distillery that was very active in the month of September. Really, they've been pretty active all year. Jim Beam. Bottle number 8 is Old Overholt 11-year-old rye whiskey. Yes, last year there was the 10-year release. This year they've got the 11-year release. It's coming in at a proof point of, I believe, at 107.4. I've only seen the label on this. I have not seen an actual bottle. But supposedly it dropped in Pennsylvania last month because somebody got their hands on it. From what I hear, within this blend of 11-year-old whiskey, they've also got blends of 12-year-old barrels and 13-year-old barrels. The MSRP, I believe, is $100 to $105. Don't quote me on that, because last year I think the 10-year was at $100. Could be as high as $110. But that is already starting to float out there. I have not seen any pictures of it. I did see a video on YouTube. It was a YouTube short of some sort. If I find it again, I'll throw it in the comments below. As for number 9, we're sticking with Jim Beam because they continue to put out new whiskey all year long. Last month they had Little Book Infinite. They had the Booker's Reserve. Before that they had the Baker's 13-year high rye. Also Knob Creek 18 again. And they had the Knob Creek Boo Rye, they had the Knob Creek 10-year rye, and they continue to just put out new stuff this year. This one, Old Granddad 16-year, which has been one of the most anticipated releases since I saw the sticker come through the TTB earlier in the year. Of course, it's a 16-year-old old granddad. Now, it's not going to be coming in at the 114 proof that we all know and love with OGD 114. However, it's right at 100 proof. The issue here is the price points. The MSRP coming in, what I believe is $180, but if it's at the distillery, you're going to be paying a little bit more. They're charging $200 if you get it out there at the outpost. They already put this out at the distillery. That was released on September 27th, but it's expected to be a nationwide release starting October 1st, so you should be able to start to see this come through. Overall, it is a bottle that I would be on the hunt for. I don't know, though, if I'm going to be paying $200. Probably one that I would try before I buy, if it was possible. Before we jump into bottles 10, 11, and 12, I do want to say you probably noticed something a little different. Yes, I have some headwear. Yeah, brand new whiskey weather hats, which are linked here in the description below, but also you can find on my website, whiskey.wx.com. And if you're part of the Patreon membership, you got a link earlier today with a discount code only for Patreon as well as YouTube members. So if you want to join either of those, there are the links below, or you just hit that join button below. You can get 10% off all merchandise solely for being a Patreon member. A big shout out to all my Patreon members who are part of the Stormfront. You can start at as little as $3 a month, and our Legends tier goes as high as $25. Every dollar that is spent in the Patreon group goes back to making this channel a better experience for you, the viewer. And I do want to thank the 100 plus Patreon members that I already have here in the Stormfront. We're looking for more. Are you going to be part of the next wave of storms rolling through? Well, speaking of the next wave of storms, let's talk about the next wave of bottles, the final three. You're going to want to stick till the end for number 12 because I've got a way on how you could enter to potentially get one of those very limited bottles. But before we get to it, number 10 is a bottle that I thought was one of the best that I tried last year, but it's also one of the most pricey bottles that you're going to find if you're going to find it, and that is Russell's Reserve Single Rickhouse. Yes, I believe this year it is coming from Camp Nelson B, according to their TTB label, from floor 6. The 2023 release came in at 117.3 proof. This year, slightly higher, 120.2 proof. It was last year about an MSRP of 300. The way that Russell's and the way that Wild Turkey's been running things this year, I wouldn't be surprised if that number continues to go up, as we saw with their Master's Keep as well as with the Russell's 15. So maybe around 350, don't quote me on that, but that would be about where I expected it. Last year, it was a 10 plus old bottle. This year, no age statement yet that I know of, but you can bet it's going to be up there. Really good whiskey. I thought it was one of the best bottles that I tried last year at my buddy John Oliva, the Dram Daddy on Instagram. You can go check him out, but that would be a bottle. I don't know if I would be paying $300 for, but you can bet I'm buying a bottle or buying a pour at the bar if I can see one. Coming in at number 11, another one that technically dropped in September in most spots, but you're more likely to find it wider spread, or at least a much better chance in the month of October to find it, because the distillery just released it last week, and that's Jack Daniel's Coy Hill. This year, it's a range of a couple different proofs from 122 to 137.5. Of course, if you're going to see it on the secondary market, those higher proof bottles are going to be listed even higher. This is an affordable bottle, as Jack Daniel's usually does with their releases, which I'll commend them for. I believe it comes in at $79.99 for an MSRP. This is around 11 years old. I say around 11 years old because when the whiskey went into the barrel, it was September of 2013. Now we're in October of 2024. They dumped the bottles, they dumped the barrels and bottled in early September. So depending on when exactly in September 2013 the whiskey went into the barrel, we're looking at a very old 10-year-old whiskey, or right at 11-year-old whiskey. And this is the classic Jack Daniel's mash bill. We're going 80% corn, 12% barley, 8% rye. This is a bottle that I would love to at least try a sample of. So if you get a hand of it and you want to send one my way for a review, I wouldn't tell you no. But if I can find one, that's definitely a bottle probably on this list that I would circle. And then finally, number 12, last but not least, we're going with 13th Colony Double Oaked. I know that last year a lot of folks, a lot of YouTubers called it their bourbon of the year, but it was also kind of poo-pooed by a lot of folks, saying that there may have been a little bit going on that shouldn't be. I know Fred Minnick was jumping down their throat. I've heard some rumors that some people think that there's tomfoolery going on with a little bit of additives. Either way, I've heard amazing things. This is a very limited release, but it's up from last year in the number of bottles. 3,570 bottles. This comes in this year 133.74 proof. MSRP, it's going to range depending on what state you're in, anywhere from $179.99 to $199.99. No age statement that I could find. And here's the thing, it should be available in some states. Here are the ones that are potentially getting these: Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Texas. And then it's going to be on Sealbox, and you can imagine the debacle that that's going to be. I believe last year it sold out in 5 minutes, if not less. So one way to get into it is joining the lottery for it. And you can do that on 13thcolonydistillery.com. That is in effect until October the 15th. They'll be doing the drawing on the 15th, and I believe you can get there by the 19th or later to pick up your bottle. They're only doing 90 in the lottery, but at least it's better than just having to go find it in the wild, especially that they're only distributed to about 10 states and on Sealbox. So that'll wrap up the list. Which bottle of those 12 would probably be the one that you would jump at? I'd probably say if I had to circle one of them, it's either Old Granddad or the Jack Daniel's Corey Hill. That's just my thoughts, but I want to know what your thoughts are. And if you did enjoy this video, or if I helped you out, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and share this video with your bourbon-loving friends to help spread the storm of whiskey weather. I appreciate you taking your time watching this video and watching my other two YouTube videos. If you did enjoy this video, you're probably going to enjoy that Kentucky Bourbon Festival hunt that I mentioned, which was an immaculate video showing you the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and that I spent more money on bourbon than I did on my mortgage. I'll end this the same way I end every other video. It is always whiskey weather. Just please remember to drink responsibly. We'll see you in that next video. Cheers, y'all.